Hello, everyone, once again. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Justina Kanza. I am the founder and the CEO here at Granted. And I'm going to share a little bit about Granted as we talk about the organization. But I wanted to give a bit of an intro about me. So, like I mentioned, founder and CEO at Granted. Outside of that, I'm also founder and executive director at Okra Academy. It is a nonprofit where we support BIPOC individuals with capital capacity building and community to build multiple ventures and entrepreneurial careers. And part of how I started Granted is because I was running this nonprofit that required me to write grants over and over again. And I just saw how tedious and fragmented and frustrating the process was. But beyond that, I also served at the University of Toronto's Black Founders Network, over 5,000 Black entrepreneurs across the country doing the same thing, offering them capacity building, offering them capital. I think that's where I was able to meet quite a few folks. One of the entrepreneurs that we supported at Black Founders Network is Annette, who's in the chat. Two of her beautiful kids, Tanika and Nathan, actually built this software that I always love to use as an example of excellent entrepreneurship called One Click. And we started with them in, I think, 2022, 23, supporting them, offering them capital, offering them grants and mentorship. And just last year, they were acquired for a hefty amount from what I hear. So always exciting to connect founders to the right resources. And so that is part of the why behind why I built Granted, and I'll share again about Granted in a little bit. I myself have raised over $2 million in grants for multiple projects and ventures. Some of the funders that have supported my work and my projects over the years have been Mastercard Foundation, the City of Toronto, University of Toronto, Government of Canada, Government of Ontario, Frontlines, and so many other foundations in between. And so, all this to say that I'm quite well versed with the process of grant seeking. And as much as I have raised over $2 million in grants, I have lost out on a whole lot of grants because of how broken this process is and the lack of structure. And to be precise, there's about 37 billion available, and this is in Canada alone. Then this is the funding that's available to founders, to nonprofits, to entrepreneurs like you and me. And this money is often left on the table because of a problem that you and I can relate to over and over again. And so I'll be curious to hear you in the chat share some of the challenges that you've had around finding the right grants. This is what I hear from founders all the time, but I'm curious if someone can drop in the chat some of the challenges that they found, because obviously if you're here, then there's something broken in the system that you're hoping to find a solution for. Part of the problems that I have heard is how time consuming and fragmented the process is. For a $10,000 grant, you might have to spend 10 hours writing just that one grant, right? And also understanding funder priorities feels impossible. Last call where someone said how they spent so much time meticulously writing this application and sending it into the funder, only for the funder to say, well, we're not really aligned. This is not what our priority is. And then there's the challenge of there's so many grant platforms out there. And one of the questions that comes up around why Granted is different and unique is because there's so many grant tools that have databases of like 10,000 plus grants. But then the challenge is discovering a grant that is relevant for your idea still feels like finding a needle in the haystack. And that's part of what we're solving for. I'm going to switch my tab so I can see if anyone has shared some of the challenges that they've been facing. I'll let you guys share those challenges and we'll get to them as we proceed. Now, part of what I want to do in our call today is really to help you understand by the end of this hour how you're going to transform your approach. Because part of the challenge of the problems that we have is not just that the problems exist, it's because we don't have systems behind it. For anything and everything else in our businesses, we have systems. We understand that to make a sale, you need to have a sales system. You need to have a CRM. We've got customer success systems. We've got marketing systems. We've got Hootsuite and HubSpot and whatever else where we can post and do all of these different activities. But somehow when it comes to fundraising and grant seeking, we're still archaic about it. Right, we still use our spreadsheets, we still use these methods that are not innovative and not leveraging the technology that's available to us today. And so as part of this demo, I would like for you to old way of pursuing funding, which is often reactive and frustrating, to the new way, which is more strategic, more systems driven, and puts you in perfect alignment with funders. And we'll show you how to do that leveraging our AI platform. Now, before I get to the demo itself, I just want to share some of the fundamentals that have gone into what and how we built our platform, but also to really support you with the education to approach funding differently and approach funding the right way. Because beyond just offering the software, part of what we really pride ourselves in as an organization is education, because we could give you the best tools. If you don't know what you're doing with the tools, you will still not succeed, right? So every month we run Grow with Granted, we call them the sessions. So we run educative webinars. And so I want to lay the foundation to our demo with some of this education. In case you're exploring grants for the first time, I want you to have this foundational shift, I call it. Now, part of this shift is a lot of us are coming to this call with multiple positionalities, I call them. I am founder, I am CEO, sometimes I'm a marketer. I know there's some folks that are content creators, there's some folks that are engineers in the room. So we have all these different job titles, which is great for when you're in the workforce. But when you sit in front of a grant application, you're not whatever your job title is. You're not a fashion designer, you're not a content creator. What you are is a project leader. You're a project lead, because framing is everything. So in the example of a fashion designer or a clothing brand, the mindset that you would you come to an application with, if you're still within that title, would be, hey, I run a clothing brand and I'm dropping a new collection of like sustainable streetwear next month. So this focuses on what you do, and it's exciting as an intro, as an elevator pitch when you're networking. But funders do not care for that. They do not care for collections. They do not care for your inventory. They care for the project that's going to deliver them the impact that they're aligned to. So for example, we would switch this to, I am launching a 12-month zero waste textile pilot project to digitize our local supply chain and reduce manufacturing emissions. That focuses on why you're doing what you do, who you're doing it for, and what the outcome is. That is what the alignment is. And funders, they don't pay, but they will pay for measurable impact. So you want to show how your work addresses larger societal challenges, because when it comes to grants, there is something we call ROI, right? Money, investment is investment. VCs invest in businesses and expect a return on their investment, and that return on investment looks like profit, and they do that in exchange for a percentage of your company. When I say VCs, I'm referring to venture capital. But when you talk of funders that are giving non-diluted funding, sometimes they look for profit, but oftentimes beyond profit, they're looking for purpose, and that purpose is driven behind the impact. So if you upcycled fabrics in this particular example, you're addressing the climate crisis, you're addressing manufacturing locally, you're addressing economic development and job creation. And if you're even selling those things internationally, you're driving the Canadian export growth, right? So that's how you change your narrative. And so you will see how our platform is actually designed to first and foremost support you in moving from being just whatever your job title is to being a project lead, and turning the work that you do into a project that actually aligns with these multiple SDGs, like sustainable development goals or other impact metrics. So that's the first foundational shift I wanted to lay ground on here. The second one is forgetting about the money. Again, this sounds controversial up front because I'm here to talk about the money. We're all here for the money at the core of it, surely. But before focusing on the money, I want us to take a crucial first step, because I see a lot of founders focusing on the funds before focusing on what they want to get funded. For the next few minutes, I want us to really think of how are we going to forget about the money and focus on building a winning project. Our AI is excellent at doing that, really helping you take you'll see how we'll take one small sentence and structure it into a project that has 14 sections, 14 narratives, including a problem, a solution, objectives, activities, etc., all from one simple sentence, and so much time saved, right? So that's what we're going to be focusing on as well. And this is part of the framework that has gone into creating our platform to support folks with project design so that they're well positioned to attract the right capital, attract the right funding. Because if you know what you're looking to get funding for, it also becomes easy to find the funding funders that are aligned with that. And you don't try to squeeze yourself in a box that you don't necessarily fit into, right? So that's one of the things that goes behind our project Copilot, as well as the whole infrastructure and architecture of Granted. And so a winning project, a winning application, it starts with something that we call the theory of change in the grants world. And this is the narrative that connects your actions to the change that you want to create. And it answers simple questions such as like, what is your ultimate goal? That's the big audacious vision that you want to bring to life. So in this example of the fashion designer, the big goal is to reduce textile waste, right? And then we say, why is it important? The why behind this as part of the narrative. This is the problem that you're solving. So that's important because, fast fashion supply chain is ecologically damaging. So how will you achieve this? This is your unique strategy and intervention. So that the how, again, in the example of the fashion designer, could be by launching a take back program and a localized upcycling facility. And part of what you want to answer now, which also matters quite heavily, is what are the outcomes of all of this? The goal, the why, the how. What are the outcomes that you're going to bring forward? What is the specific measurable change that the world will see as a result of your activities? And that is like, for example, diverted 1,000 pounds of textile waste from landfills and created 3 new local manufacturing jobs. These things by themselves are not complete, but together they tell a whole story. If you go to a funder and say, hey, like there is a problem, fast fashion is damaging our ecology, they're like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? How are you going to do it? Okay, I'm going to do A, B, C, D. Okay, so that sounds nice, but what will be the result of that? And if you go to them and say, we're going to create 3 new jobs, that for the city of Toronto would be like, okay, 3 new jobs to our economy, more taxes, benefit for us. We're going to fund this initiative, right? So that's the theory of change. And that is the framework that you'll see at play in our platform. Now, beyond just the theory of change, which is your story, you need a blueprint, because everyone can tell a good story, especially today. If you go to ChatGPT will probably write you a book in a matter of days, right? So anyone and everyone can tell a story, but a story without a blueprint of action is just words, and words are cheap. Everyone can afford those. So how do you back that up with blueprint in action? So this simple chart really turns your inspiring vision into a credible step-by-step plan. It maps out your inputs. So the inputs are like what you need to get this problem solved. So for example, again, I'll go with the same example of the fashion designer, the fabrics, the tech packs, the sewing machines, those are the inputs that I need. And then it links that to your activities. Okay, since these are the inputs that you need, what are the activities that you would do? And those activities should match step by step to the inputs that you say. So if you need fabrics, what are the fabrics for in the activities? Because if you ask for computers and there's nothing in your activities that calls for computers, funders are going to say there's no match there, there's no link there, right? So you want to match it exactly. And then based on that, you want to match it to the output. So the output is what you produce as a result of the activities and the inputs that you have. And again, this should match. So if you're saying we're going to be prototyping, 10,000 sewing machines, what should that, also 10,000 fabrics, like what would that produce? The 10,000 fabrics that have been prototyped or sewn or whatever will produce 500 new units of recycled clothing. And then outcomes, what's the outcomes out of that? So this is the impact that you will have as a result of those outputs. So when you produce 500 units, or when you produce 1 new commerce site as an output, what is the outcome of that output? So there'll be local job creation, etc. And the outcomes are exactly what you will see even when you go to a grant. Those are some of the buzzwords that show up on grants, right? So you see, I want to give an example, like the Ministry of Jobs and Economic and Trade and whatever, you see them talk a lot about workforce entry. They'll talk a lot about local job creation. Those are outcomes. Those are outcomes that help you align to the funders. And those outcomes are driven by outputs such as, the commerce site that helps employ 10,000 people, whatever the case may be. So that is the logical framework, and that's an important tool for proving to funders that you are a good steward of their capital. It shows them that you're not just a creative dreamer, because again, we all can dream, but you're a builder with a plan, and that you have a story to tell, and that your blueprint shows that you're officially fundable. And all of this goes into our project design before then sending you to apply for grants. And the last piece is what I call the universal funder equation. As much as every grant might seem different, it is almost the same at the core. Almost every funder is evaluating you on the same principles at the core. This is a little equation that I put together that I'm quite proud of, because I didn't do very well in math in university. This is the best I could do. But with this equation, it starts with what we've already talked about, the compelling story, which is your theory of change, your credible plan, which is your logical model or the logical framework. There's a couple of things that I'll add here also. And one of them is the POC, the proof of concept, because funders want to back winners. They want to see that you've done this work or this kind of work before, right? And you don't always have to wait for the funding to come to begin doing your projects and running your projects. What are the smallest ways? We always talk of MVPs in entrepreneurship. What are the minimum viable products, the minimum viable plan that you can use to execute that? And so with a proof of concept, part of how we design our projects with our technology architecture is understanding if you've done that work before. And a lot of application questions ask you this. And having done that work, I see a lot of founders limit it to just, I've never run a nonprofit before, as an example. So if I've never run a nonprofit before, I cannot add in my application that I've run a nonprofit before. And so if I don't have that, then I'm showing I don't have the proof of concept, essentially. But when you take a step back, and I'll give an example of my own nonprofit. When I first started it, I, again, had never run a nonprofit before, and I was applying for grants that were asking me, have you done programs like this before? Have you done projects like this before? And at first I was like, no, I've never done it. But then I took a step back and said, wait a minute, what am I doing in my 9 to 5? Exactly what I'm proposing to do in my nonprofit, I've already done in my 9 to 5, in my current job, in my previous jobs, and all of those skills are transferable, right? So you need to learn how to kind of transition that to say, I've got transferable skills, I've got proof of concept, because beyond just your plan and your project and your story, funders are investing in you. And so you want to show your credibility and your capability and your competence that way, essentially. And then the team is another one. And by strong team, I'm not just talking of you and your co-founder and your core team. It's everyone that is in your ecosystem. So if you're running a nonprofit, or you hope to not run a nonprofit and you've got a project of some sort, but you're a solopreneur, who else is in your ecosystem? Do you have a boards of advisors, right? Sometimes funders will ask for organizational capacity and say, hey, someone on your team who's got legal expertise, who's got marketing expertise. And maybe on your core team and on salary, you don't have anyone, but you've got a board of directors who have these specific skills. That is your team. Or maybe you've got a group of volunteers that have that. That is your team. So you need to learn how to frame and storytell around this. And then last but not least, and probably most important, because you might have all of this right, if you cannot show how you will return on their investment, that makes or breaks you. If person A and person B have the same stories, plans, proofs of concept, teams, and everything else, the one thing that I would venture to say is a unique distinguisher is, if we invest in this person versus this person, who's going to give us the most return on our investment? And I know I mentioned that funders are not looking at return on investment as profit. It could be impact. So I call my ROI actually return on impact, because funders have funders. Everyone is accountable to someone. If you get a grant from the city of Toronto, they're likely maybe getting the grant from the province of Ontario. That province of Ontario is getting funding from the federal government. The federal government is getting funding from the taxpayers. So everyone is accountable to someone. And they want to be able to go back to that person and say, hey, that money that you gave us, well, this is what we did with it. That 100K that you gave us, we were able to give it to this organization. We gave it to Dan's organization, and Dan did work on the ground with local communities and was able to create 500 new jobs, right? So you want to be able to tell the story of how you will generate that for them. And now insert granted. This is exactly what we've built this tool for. And we know the old system is broken. We know there's a lot of gaps and fragmentedness in how the system works. And I know part of the challenge is it sounds like a lot of work, because it is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. we're entrepreneurs, you're running organizations, you're doing such great, purposeful, and heart-led work in your communities. You don't have the 5 hours to write one grant, right? So we know that system is broken and that a new system is required, which is why my team and I built Granted. I have on the call Obed, who's our Chief Technology Officer, is on the call and has done such excellent work in bringing this vision to life. We wanted to build a platform that does two things, right? Automate as much as possible of the grant discovery, the funder research, the proposal writing, the project development, and even the post-award tracking, because once you get the money, that's only the beginning. So we wanted to build a platform that does that on one hand. But beyond all the automations, and you'll see that we've got AI-powered grant matching, we've got AI-powered grant writing, intelligent autofill, automated management, funder insights, and all of these things. You'll see that we have that. But beyond just the AI, because the kind of work that I envision an end user having is purpose-led work. It's work that involves humans. So AI is great, but HI is equally important, and HI is human intelligence. So at the core of everything that we've built for you is to release and help you preserve your bandwidth so that you can insert your human intelligence. If you're writing 10 grants in a week and that's taking you 20, 30 hours that week, you're just on autopilot, you're stressed. You don't have the moment of pause to say, okay, what are some conversations I've been having in my community? That creativity that comes in having space to breathe, you don't have that. So we built our platform so it does 80% of the administrative work for you so that you're not answering over and over again. What's your name? What does your organization do? What's your name? What does your organization do? We're relieving you from all of those administrative tasks so that you can focus on the creative part of it. You can focus on the 20%. It is 20%, but it moves 80% of the needle, right? So I could talk about this all day, and I would rather show you. So I'm going to do a demo of the product in a little bit. But before that, I want to take a pause to see if there's any questions and take temperature of the room, because I was not really tracking the conversations in the chat as I was speaking. So I'm seeing some of the challenges that folks are having. Getting feedback on unsuccessful grant applications is a big one. I think that one is always quite manual, and you have to poke at program managers and funding committees to give you feedback. And also knowing how the grant is evaluating responses, i.e. rubric or grading metrics, would be ideal. How we've built our software is based on past successful applications. So I think part of what I'm going to just give this note to my CTO, Obed. I would be very curious to see what we can do around getting access as part of data to those rubrics and integrating them into our training of our models, but also in some of the new tools that I don't want to spoil that we have coming up in the next little while, but are not ready for public announcement. But yes, we've got something that we're building MA to solve for that. Another challenge I see, not specificity related to eligibility, minimum contributions, etc. That's an excellent point. I'll show you in a second how our platform, part of our data team's assignment is to really break down that specificity on eligibility so that you have a snapshot of where you stand with that application before over-investing. Okay, great. Exciting work. So allow me to switch over here so I can properly share the right screen. Okay, can folks see my screen? Let me get some thumbs up. Perfect. Amazing. Okay, I'm also curious to get hands raised of folks that have used our platform before, at the very least the old version of the platform. I know the new one was rolled out last week, but who's used the old version? I see Annette. Yeah, Annette. I know Barb was on there. Dan, Ayo. Amazing. Okay, excited to see that some folks have some familiarity with what we've built. But this is the new look, if you will, new look and improved functionality. But this is what the dashboard looks like. So I'm using my nonprofit's real account. All of this you're seeing is not fictional. This is real projects. So as part of your onboarding process, we'll capture as much information about you as possible. And that information would then live right here in your profile. And the information that we're capturing is around the organization's details, the equity attributes, if you're equity serving, because some funders are specific to that. Just all of this primary information about your organization that helps us match you to the right funding and helps our intelligence get as much data and understanding of your context as possible. So your narrative, your mission, vision, etc., funding history, some of your past funding opportunities. Yeah, so you're able to do that all here. And I know not everyone is a solopreneur. There's a lot of organizations that are working in teams. And so you want to collaborate with your team members. So you're able to do that here and invite multiple team members and assign them multiple roles. So you can have a director, someone who's just a collaborator, someone who owns, some people that have maybe just view only access. So you can circulate with multiple stakeholders. Different tiers of our subscription have different limitations as to how many collaborators you can have. So you can see for me here that I've got a couple of organizations that I'm a collaborator in. So I've got workspaces that I can switch between, but for the context of this demo, we'll just stick with my foundation. So that's what the process of onboarding looks like. And once you're on, you have a checklist of things to complete in your profile, because the more complete your profile is, the easier it is for our intelligence to match you to the right resources, and the easier life is for you. But the dashboard is your snapshot of anything and everything that's up and coming in terms of deadline, opportunities that you have, tasks that you're assigned, and all the good stuff. Now, there's 4 main categories of a full cycle of grant management. There's the discovery, there's the application, there's the management, and there's the tracking. The tracking is the reports and everything that comes after you've received the award, that comes post-award. That we haven't figured out yet. That is something that we're currently working on as a team, and we hope to release our features and the reports in the next quarter or two. But for discovery, we've made it so that it is easy for opportunities that are available to you. Right now, our database has almost 1,500 grants available for you, and these grants are for nonprofits, for-profits, creatives, researchers. We've tried to make it as broad as possible. And this list is also on and growing. The idea and the hope is that by the end of this quarter, we can get it to at least 10,000 grants that are available to you. With the traditional filters, which is something that you might have seen in other platforms, you can go in and select the type of funding that you're looking for. So I'll give an example here. My organization is a nonprofit. So say I'm looking for nonprofit funding. I'm looking for funding that is aligned with Indigenous, women-led. These are some of the things that my nonprofit does. So I'll try and get funding that captures all of this stuff. Maybe I'll leave the grant purpose vague, and I can apply these filters, and I can see all the grant opportunities that are available to me. And I can click on this grant and a few things show up. So one is, if I like this grant enough after perusing through, I can simply save it. I can share it, copying and pasting. I can spread it on different social platforms. But I also have this application readiness score. And this is very, very helpful because it shows me how ready I am for this application based on the checklist that part of what our data team is doing when they're bringing these grants on. They're identifying the checklist of everything that is required for this grant. So you see this checklist. If we scroll to the bottom, you need financial statements, you need incorporation docs, and to your point, MA, it's like not knowing front end what those eligibility pieces are. We've made it so you can know it up front and know, okay, I don't have financial statements, and these are going to take me like 2 months to get. And I don't have that 2 months. I'm not going to invest in this grant right now. That data upfront that helps drive decisions is what we're focused on. And so based on this checklist and what our intelligence knows about your organization, it tells you how ready you are for that application. So with this application, I'm not so ready. That's not to say don't apply. It just means these are the things that I need to prepare to get this application going. So that is one part of our discovery. So using traditional filters to access grants, and beyond just traditional filters, because sometimes you need a more personalized, even out of these 390, however many grants we had found, there is still a lot of sorting through, right? So we've got another added layer, and this is our AI recommendation engine. You're gonna hear me throw Gigi around a lot. That's the name that we've given to our intelligence. She's named after my mother, Giselle. And so Gigi goes through what she knows about your venture and suggests a few recommendations. And these are your strongest matches. So you see that it's already labeled as a strong match here. These are your strongest matches, and she'll give you some of these recommendations. So you can go to Gigi to get strong matches. You can go to Gigi to see which grants are potentially a good fit for you or maybe worth exploring. You would see all of those here. So you do the same process. I would go to this grant and see all of these details. I'm a good fit, but I don't have the right readiness. So I need to upload all of these documents. Part of this is happening because I haven't fully completed my application with uploading my incorporation documents, my letters of support, etc. So what you do now, I've got a grant that I'm like, good levels of readiness. I have a lot of the checklists done. To your point, MA, as you had mentioned before, is not knowing the eligibility criteria. We broke that down for you in just a snapshot, so you know the different pieces that this funder is looking at. I know the allowable expenses, and then you also have the contact information of the folks that you can reach out to, because this information is important to ask clarifying questions, but also to get feedback. Now I have this. The next thing I want to do is I want to draft my application, and there's a couple of things that are happening. It would send me to the funder's site if I want to go do it directly there, or if I want to draft my application right on Granted, it will show me, well, I have an existing application here. So it told me, do I want to continue using my existing application, or do I want to start a new application? So I want to start a new application for the context of this, and I'll continue. And it will ask me, do I want to continue without a project, or do I want to link a project? So one of the reasons why I started this session by emphasizing the importance of creating projects that are fundable is because almost every funder is not just funding an organization. I'm talking specifically in the grant world. They're funding a project within an organization. So you have to learn how to really storytell even your operations, whatever you're doing, your work around a specific project. And this is because projects they're within what, I don't know if you guys remember the SMART goals. A project can be specific, it can be measurable, it can be achievable, it can be time bound and reasonable, right? So within a project, you have a specific timeline. The funder will know that, okay, if we give the money, they'll deliver this particular thing between January and December of 26, right? They'll do this with $10,000. They'll do this with these resources, these are the specific activities. Whereas if it's just general funding, without any of these project limitations, then it's just operational funding, and the funders can track as well. So projects are important, hence the emphasis of our intelligence in really supporting you with that process. So I'm going to say start with a new project, just as an example. So I'm going to start this application with a new project. There we go. So the application has been drafted. Now we're going to go back to our project. So there's a couple of things that happen with our platform. So we've got the projects portal. This is the project that we just started over there. And you can see some of the different pieces that are needed and the narrative and all of this stuff that are needed to kind of get started. So now you need to build your project narrative. And there's a couple of ways that you do that, or that we let you do that. You can do it yourself, or you can use Gigi to draft your narrative. So we're going to use Gigi to auto draft our narrative. And so let me backtrack here by adding a summary of what is this project that we want to do. And I have my own list of project ideas, but for the context of this, I'm going to pick someone's idea here so we can use a real-time project. I'm going to use Solo Mama because I love Annette. There we go. I'm going to copy and paste this one sentence, and let's go back to our portal here, and we're going to add our project summary. So this is what Single Mamas Launchpad does. Okay, and then some of these I'll leave. Who are the beneficiaries? This is always important to add. So I'll say women, BIPOC, and then what's the time period? So there's a couple of, say, maybe undefined, or it's defined, or it's ongoing. So I'm gonna define our timeline, and I'm gonna say we want to do this within the next year. This is our project date. So let's go exactly 1 year. There we go. I'm gonna copy this. Or perhaps I'm going to do it this way so I can properly label it. Solo Mama Launchpad. And then do it that way. Perfect. And then now I can select all of these data points, education, just keep it random. I'm going to say professional services, social services, and creative. And this is an idea. Next. Okay, so let's build with Gigi. There we go. Our project is done. Perfect. Now, the pieces that I shared earlier as part of the educational piece of the session, with some of those things that are important about defining about the projects are what have gone into this architecture. So what's the problem you're solving for? What's the objectives? What are the activities? What's the timeline? The budget, referring to the input and the resources, expected outcomes, all of those things are part of what we're going to be getting with Gigi. So now we're going to generate a narrative, a project narrative for this particular project, going step by step with just that one sentence that we put in. So I'm just going to generate this with Gigi and give Gigi a second. So it will generate all of these responses automatically for you based on just that one sentence that you've put in. And it would do that from draft, from the problem statement, the solution, the objectives, and you have a couple of options as you are generating these responses. So you have the option to redraft if you are not content with the response, and you would prompt in how you want the redraft to look like. You have the option to even like shorten. So when you say shorten, maybe you're making it shorter, you need 300 words, because a lot of these applications often have word limitations. That would happen all of here as well. You have the option to improve, and the improve is just an automated generation, or you would ask Gigi a specific question, a specific problem that you need support with, and all of that would happen right here. So now when you go back to your applications, and let's select one of these ones, which is with the Cowichan Women's Business Network. So when you go back to your application, this is the exact application form, question by question, that is what the funders are asking for. So we've taken these questions and imported them onto our platform, because right now everything is happening on our platform. And we've made it so that now with one button, you can generate responses, and a response is generated for you. And you would be able to copy this response and paste it directly into the corresponding question box directly on the funder portal on the application site. But you also have a couple of steps that you could take leading up to that. And one of those steps is you could export your application as a Word document so that you can circulate it for socialization with your stakeholders. Maybe you're sending it to your executive director. Maybe you're sending it to your community partners to support you through that. So that's an option. Or you could add comments there. If there's any comments that have been added, you would find them right here, or attach any related document, or just mark your application as ready to submit, which means I've reviewed everything looks good, it's ready to submit. And what this does then is it moves the application under your funnel to reviewing or ready for submission. And so this application management portal is essentially if you've ever used like Asana or Monday or ClickUp, it's essentially the project management of grant management portal. So you're able to track through the different stages that your applications are going, so that you never miss any deadline, so that you know what's happening in your portal and in your pipeline through each stage. So all the grants that you're prospecting, all the grants that you saved go directly here under prospecting. All the grants that you've started drafting and responding to applications for would go here under preparing. And the grants that you've marked as ready to submit would go under reviewing up until a time as it has been submitted. And once it is awarded, it will go under awarded. And once it has been declined, it would go under declined correspondingly. And now one of the interesting pieces here is when I click on this grant as part of management, I'm brought to a full grant management portal where not only can I just see which stage the grant is at, I can also add notes. So I'm tracking everything related to this application on one site. Yeah, so the management piece is going to look like this. And yeah, so you can add comments. So this is essentially important when you're collaborating with folks. And then importantly, it's assigning tasks, because part of why I've missed out on so much funding has been because there's so much going on, because grants, again, is like sales. It's a volumes game. You want to apply and sell yourself to as many people as possible, knowing that only a handful of those will come back in the affirmative. So part of that requires tracking every step and diligence and task that is attached to that particular grant. And so here you're able to add specific tasks. And when I go to this task, I can edit it accordingly. So I can edit the description. I can assign a member of my team to do this particular task. I can say task type, whether it's like approval or research this about this funder, to do in progress, all the things that help you really ensure everything is running smoothly are added as part of this process. So that is here, and the readiness, you won't see this as well here because this application has been reviewed as ready, marked as review and ready for submit. But when your grant is still in prospect and preparing stages, which means you're still drafting, you're still working on it, you're able to edit. And let me show that in real time, actually, that might be easier. So let's go with the Yukon Foundation grant. So if I go to this grant and I go under readiness, I'll see that this is part of the checklist. This is the checklist that this grant has. I need to be able to select organization type and all of these additional stuff. So if I have this, I'll say I have this. If not yet, I'll say not yet, so that I know where I am with this particular one. So I'm not ready. And this helps you track where you're at in your grant writing process, because the last thing you want to do is go through everything. It's 10 minutes to the deadline. You think you're ready because you thought you had everything, but you've got 5 documents that are missing. So this checklist helps with that. So that is essentially it under management. And then any tasks assigned to you would be here, and then also linked with your calendar. So you're getting real-time notifications of everything and anything that's up and coming, and any documentations that you have as part of your organization. Think your decks, think your business plans, your budget proposals, etc., will be added right here. And then we've gone above and beyond. Like I mentioned, the reporting feature is not yet here, but the objective with the reporting feature is once you get the funding, funders give you like a payment agreement or like a contract of some sort. And as part of that contract, they usually list out your obligations, their obligations, the deadlines, the KPIs, reporting metrics, all of these things. These documents can be bulky. They can be as bulky as like 5-10 pages, right? So part of what we're building is really an infrastructure that allows you to upload that document with us, and our intelligence is able to pull out what the key metrics are that you're going to be reporting on, and create a personalized dashboard for you, and really integrate with the different tools that you're already using. So we can be pulling that data as you are doing your projects in real time. This could look as simple as like a WhatsApp integration, where every time you run a session, you need to like upload a photo, or like take a photo and put it in the WhatsApp chat. And our platform can take that. And when it's time for reporting and now you're scrambling around pulling data, what we're building is so that at that time, with just one click, you can auto-generate a report, because we've been doing all the work for you in the background. So that's up and coming. But outside of that, we've got additional resources as well that we've put together for you, because we know with the goal with founders and organizations, etc., it's not just to get money, it's also to save money. It's also to find other ways in kind that you can really reduce the cost of operations and run as lean as possible. So we've made it so that our team also researches some additional perks that are available to you, so you can get these discounts. One that I like, because we've used it, is HubSpot for startups. HubSpot is a CRM tool for sales, marketing, etc. The quote that we had initially was like $4,000 per month to use this tool. Excellent tool, but $4,000 per month is ridiculous for a startup as small as us. But with this discount, we pay about $250 per month, right? So all of these tools are right here, and they're available right now to all users. As you can see, this is going to change as we add on more tools. Some of them will be limited for specific users that are part of our paid plans. Here in your user portal, you can also see all your guidebooks and any other resources that have been added. And we also have a dictionary, because we never want for language to be a barrier to access information, because sometimes you just don't know what an award letter is. Sometimes you just don't know what cost sharing is. And we want to make sure you've got the language for it. So that is the platform in a nutshell. And what I have showed you here is the user end of the platform, the customer end of the platform. We would need to have a separate demo for grant writers, because if you're a grant writer and a grant consultant, we actually have built exactly this, but how do you use it for multiple clients? So we've made it so that you can manage multiple clients in one place and automate the process for you, automate the research, your grant research, automate your grant writing, automate your grants management, so that you can serve more clients, because your work is slashed into 20%. From 100, you're only doing 20% of the actual work, because 80% is automated. And then on top of that, you can take on more clients, you can generate more revenue. And we've also built it, and you'll see here, actually, this is a good example. When you go to your profile, as a user, you will see sponsorships and invitations. This is because we are now serving accelerators and incubators that are serving founders. So accelerators and incubator directors or program managers, they get a dashboard and they get specific sponsorship invitations and codes that they can give to their founders, so that their founders can use our platform with the bill most times on the accelerator. So if you're part of an incubator and accelerator, you might want to reach out to them and say, hey, there's to use that we think would be valuable for the founders. And some of them, we might already be in conversations with them. Some of you, like if you're part of BFN, for example, sometime soon, you should be getting access to this platform at no cost or at discounted costs. So all of that you'll be able to do here. And then in the back end, directors and accelerators can see all the founders that are part of their ecosystem. They can also see how much money, how much funding they're accessing, and it makes it easier for them to report to their own funders to say, hey, we've supported 20 entrepreneurs this month, and those 20 entrepreneurs have accessed A, B, C, D amount of funding. So that's part of the whole ecosystem. Right now, we're heavily focused on supporting the grantee, the granted, but soon we're also exploring some exciting tools to support the funders. So think donor intelligence, think funder intelligence, and that's going to solve both ends of the ecosystem. Okay, Canada. So let's build with Gigi and create and start and generate with Gigi. So Gigi's gonna generate. So based on that one sentence we gave her about the Solo Mama Launchpad, we've got a problem statement given here. So I'm gonna give it a quick read, Annette, you can tell me how closely it aligns with what you have in mind. You'll see that it's emphasizing BIPOC. This is only because it's also dragging context from my organization's overview, and my organization's overview is for BIPOC serving. So it would say BIPOC women in Canada, particularly single mothers, face persistent systemic barriers that impede economic stability. These barriers offer limited access to equitable employment, capital, entrepreneurial resources, often exacerbated by racial and gender discrimination. The intersection of race, gender, and parental status places single mothers in a uniquely vulnerable position within the Canadian economy. Single mothers encounter significant challenges in securing stable, well-paying employment and building generational wealth. These difficulties are compounded by high costs of living and childcare, time constraints, and the lack of flexible pathways that accommodate unique responsibilities. Traditional employment models often fail to provide the necessary support to single mothers to pursue professional development or entrepreneurial ventures. Annette, does this capture the problem that you're solving for based on that one sentence that you gave us?
Yes, it does.
Amazing, amazing. Perfect. So aligned with this, I would accept it. And I would go the same and do the same for the solution. So it goes on and does that for all 14. And this will take you because all you're doing is reading through and saying, yeah, I like this, I don't like this. And if I need to regenerate, I can add some context there and regenerate and kind of go from there. But it saves you so much time. This truly should take you less than a couple of minutes. And so it's provided as a solution, multifaceted program encompassing training, mentorship, and access to resources, flexible delivery model, Solo Mama, which acknowledges constraints and childcare responsibilities, all of these things that, knowing the organization, I know that's exactly what you've built a solution to this problem. Our AI is able to generate just based on that one sentence. You could even put in 5 words as part of the summary and you would get this stuff generated. And if I needed anything refined, I would go in here and add whatever the refinement I need, and it would regenerate. In addition to getting all this narrative and creating a narrative, you can also adjust your grant preferences. And then based on how well you filled out your grant narrative, any grants that are recommended for this particular project would show up here. So these are some of the grants that have been recommended for this project that Solo Mama is eligible for, that you might want to look at. Annette, you would see them here. And then my grants, these are any grants that I have saved or linked to this particular project. And then my application is any application that I have started as part of this particular project. So all of that is centralized. But yeah, I think I'll stop here because I know I've spoken a lot and we're running short on time. So I would like to leave room for questions and engagements and interactions. So I'll pause here for now. Okay, I see a couple of questions. I'm going to answer a few. So MA, I noticed one of your grants was closed, yet your score was shown. Does the system not flag this, or is it designed to prepare you for when it next reopens? It's a little bit of both. So it does flag when applications are closed, but it still allows you to save them so that you can, once you save a grant, you essentially turn on alert systems. You can receive notifications when there's any change on that grant. So when it opens up, you would be notified. So we would hate to not connect you to opportunities just because they're closed, especially if we know they're recurring. So if you see a grant there, it's likely that it is a recurring grant and it's been flagged for you for that reason. So you can be connected when it reopens. Do you only link grant-based opportunities or any opportunities, even the ones with $0? It's only grant-based opportunities. So if you see $0 in funding, it's because it is unspecified. So $0, especially because it's unspecified. So we're primarily doing grants. There's a few loan type of opportunities that you might find on the platform, but only the loans that are structured as a form of a grant, which is a whole different conversation. You'll see pitch competitions and prizes, which are essentially grants that you have to compete for. Does Gigi inform applicants of gaps based on the content they have already uploaded in the system? In other words, will it indicate if we need more information to answer this question? Yes, I think one of the parts that I showed earlier, I'll reshare my screen, was, let's go here. So if we looked at any sort of grant, part of what we would see is your application readiness. So this is where we're showing you what the gaps are. This is what the funder is looking for. This is what you don't have yet. So that's how we help you identify those gaps so you can decide if you can meet them ahead of application or decide that you're not able to meet them. So you can go and put your energy where it actually matters within that period. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Dan because I see Dan's hand up.
Thanks. I thought maybe first just touch on that. I've done a lot of or up until this point, applications on my own and using AI. You can throw in a lot of context in your own AI, building pretty much a self-help version of what Justine is doing, and it's not even close. I've built my own platform with AI and I've got my own features built in with AI. You can do it to an extent, but when you really go down that rabbit hole, it's not worth it trying to go for that. So if it's a grant writer or someone else that you're looking at, I think that they're probably going to be hopping on this pretty soon, which is exciting. But another thing that I was curious about, Justina, the community that we have here, it's growing since the last call. Also awesome. Do you have a plan to create perhaps like a community portal or a way for all these founders to connect? As you mentioned, a lot of them are solopreneurs. A startup that I worked on, I went into it a solopreneur and found, going through 2 startup incubators, found another person who shared a similar vision, and we actually joined and ended up working on the same startup. And you've already connected me to Jordan, which is huge. Very excited to help him out. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Well, thanks for the validation first and for the question. Yes, so yeah, Obed and Ayomide will love you for the question, because they've been talking a lot about getting community and stuff, which I love and I want us to do. So definitely it's up and coming. What it would look like, we're still yet to decide. But in the meantime, this is how we build community. Our team is very much ingrained in the ecosystem, on the ground, at the events, serving the people that need this platform the most, and also connecting as virtually as we can with our monthly webinars and our office hours. So that's how we've been building community so far. And also part of why I encourage like everyone to share what they're building in the chat is so that people know each other in the room. It's not just me speaking to you, it's also you guys speaking to each other in that sense. So definitely that's one of the ways that we're doing that. I don't know if I've answered your question down there.
Yeah, no, that was pretty much it. You got it.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna answer a few more questions so that we can close up. Alex asks, in case someone is too busy, do you have a designated person who can help with grant writing and applying? I've paid over for grant writers, but no one delivers. They abandon halfway or never do the work. Absolutely relate and connect with that. That is exactly why we built the platform, so that you don't have to pay grant writers in that way necessarily, because they can be expensive and you're not just writing one grant. Ideally, you're writing a whole lot of grants and it gets pricey very quick. So we wanted, to use Dan's word, make it a self-help for you guys, a tool that can do a lot of what grant writers can do in your hands, doing it at your own time in the fraction of the time. I had emphasized this early, AI versus HI. Artificial intelligence is great. All of these automations and intelligence is great. Sometimes you do need a real human to insert that positionality, insert those nuances for you. And if you can't do it yourself, we have availability for you to connect with grant writers. So part of what I mentioned earlier is that we are also serving grant writers. So we're not in competition with grant writers. We work alongside them to make their work efficient. The more efficient their work is, the more they can take on multiple clients for a fraction of the effort, the cheaper they can even make it for those clients, right? So we've got a pool of grant writers that you can request a grant writer if you so need, and we'll connect you to them. And maybe you already have a draft and you need a grant writer to edit it for you. And if you've used our platform to create that draft, that's a lot of money saved, because now a grant writer is not charging you for discovery and program design and drafting. They're just charging you for review and input. So that's part of the rationale there. And the costs, at least speaking specifically on the B2C side as an end user, we've got 3 tiers. So we've got our discovery package, which you can find on our page. We're subscription-based software. So discovery allows you, if you're just looking for research, so if you're just looking to find grants and you just want a database of grants and you want to use the AI grant analysis and all the matching tools and all the good stuff, you can get that for $149 per month. This compares to what our competitors are charging for about 150, 200 Canadian per month for only grants, and you don't get all of these other functionalities. Our second tier is what we call the co-pilot. So the co-pilot allows you to create projects the same way that I had demonstrated, generate applications and all of these things, up to 15 of them. And it also allows you to bring on up to 3 collaborators, so 3 team members on the platform under the same plan. So you can have a couple of workspaces that way. And you can also get funder reports. So funder reports essentially are, if you see a funder that you're interested in, you can request to get a report done on that funder to say, who have they funded in the past? What's their funding patterns? How do I position myself to be a strong candidate and contender for them? All of that in the co-pilot for $3.99 per month. All of this is Canadian. And then we've got the scale, which is for power users. A lot of the folks that use this are nonprofits that are a bit larger. They've got big teams. They're doing grant writing like crazy, like power users really. And even a few consultants, grant consultants are using this as well. A lot of what I mentioned in Copilot, same functionalities, increased limitations, increased capacity. So you can bring on up to 10 users on the same platform. You can write up to 40 grants, create up to 40 projects per month as part of this. So that is the model. We're also currently in the process of making a credit-based system, because sometimes maybe you've run out of these credits, or maybe you're just on the discovery and you don't necessarily have the co-pilot functionalities and you want to be able to create maybe just one project and one application on our platform. So we'll allow you to buy credits, like buy a package that you can use and pay as you go. So that's a lot of economics that we need to figure out and still happening in the background. I'll answer one last question from Tanya, which is around security. The data or data, so two things, intellectual property and data privacy and security. One, intellectual property, as part of using our platform, like there's a lot of privacy policies, and part of that is both for you and for us. Intellectual property is everything that you create on our platform is yours. The projects that you create are yours. They are secluded to your particular accounts. They're not shared with anyone else within the platform. So we built rail guards that really safeguard your data on our platform. And we're in the process of getting something called SOC 2 compliance. It's a bit of a pricey process, but this is really just an external auditor that comes in to verify that everything is secure. So we're in the process of getting that, but we do have all the secure guardrails around that. And yeah, so I think that was the last question. I see Lisa has a question, so maybe I'll take that from Lisa so we can wrap up. And Lisa, please go ahead. Lisa Joy.
Okay, so hi, good evening. Oh, excellent presentation. I'm so happy that I got a chance to get online today. So I have two questions. My first question is, if you want to join, I know you list the tiers. Is any of that including like an implementation or some training, initial training and walkthrough with someone?
So specifically only for our two tiers, the co-pilot and the scale, there's an onboarding support that's going to be a part of that. I forgot to add, Fox, that we have a 20% off for the month of May, and specifically for folks on this call, a follow-up email will come along. But if you're ready to get started, you get a 14-day free trial.
Okay.
The free trial has limitations, but you get a free trial where you can test the platform out. And there is the discount code launch20 to get 20% off your first month. So with our partnership with Solo Mama Launchpad, for example, we've got a partnership with that accelerator where their founders for a certain period of time, and as per the agreement, are able to access our platform for a very discounted price because of some of the agreements that we have in place. So that's part of why I'm advocating for, if you belong to an accelerator, to have a conversation with your accelerator. Chances are they're already in conversations with us about using our platform, or at the very least you put it in front of their top of their inbox so we can connect with you through them. But all of that aside, you're still able to use our platform individually. 20% off for the month of May if you subscribe in the month of May. And then for co-pilot and scale tiers, you get onboarding support. I think this is a great place to stop today. Thank you, Fox, for joining. Thanks for spending your afternoons with us. And thank you for your feedback and your receptiveness and grace.